everyone, Stephanie Denman here from the Denman Homestead. Today I have got to get rid of all these tomatoes. We've got to do something with them. They're starting to break down on the countertop. So I have been collecting them in different stages of ripeness to get them to a point where I can get a bunch of them at one time and make pasta sauce, marinara sauce, tomato gravy, call it what you will. I have made this in the past and it's one of the jarred ingredients that we go through a lot. Green beans is one of them. Pasta sauce is probably right up there in close second. So, well, pickles. We can't keep pickles here very long either. But marinara sauce is probably high up there on the list, and we're gonna make that today. I'm gonna can it in our water bath canner. You also can pressure can it if you have a pressure canner, but typically when you pressure can tomato sauce, it's because you have other low acidic ingredients in it, like mushrooms or meat or dairy or something like that. I'm just gonna do a basic tomato sauce recipe, so it's perfectly safe to water bath tomatoes because of the already high acid content. So let's get started. What I have here is I've prepped with some garlic, which I'm cheating, it's already minced garlic, some oregano dried, fresh basil from the garden, a big old onion, some canning salt, some of my utensils here, and then obviously my tomatoes in the background, which I'll show you in a little bit. I've got my big old canning pot over here. I have another stock pot on the stove. I've got a stock pot in the sink. I've got a strainer over here, so I'm trying to get everything kind of laid out and ready so that I'm not constantly searching for stuff. I'm sure I'll still do that. Got some of my canning equipment. I got the oven on because I have my jars in the oven that I'm going to be using. They're at a high heat right now, killing off any sort of fun bacteria that might be on them. So I've got those in the oven, heating up. And yeah, so we're just gonna get into it. Now, traditionally, a lot of people use what's called a paste tomato to make tomato sauce. I use all of my tomatoes. Like, it doesn't matter to me what they are. A lot of times people use like Romas, San Marizanos or Marizanos. Those are really good for making sauces because they have a very low water content and a lot of meat to them. Some tomatoes are super seedy and watery and they don't have a whole lot of meat. Some have a good amount of meat and not a lot of seeds or water. So I'm just gonna use them all. I don't mind it. I don't mind the flavor profile. I'm not gonna use the green tomatoes. I do want it to have a red look to it. So I'm gonna keep out the green and use everything else. I even have some yellow that I'm gonna be using. So I'm not super traditional when it comes to that aspect of making tomato sauce, but it's still super flavorful, very, very good. And yeah, you put it on your pasta, you'll never know. All right, let's go, let's get into it. First step, we need to blanch our tomatoes, which means we're gonna core them, or score them, cut off the tops, and we're gonna put them in a hot bath, hot water, and it's gonna help the skins peel off really nicely and easily when we stick them in a cold bath. So we're gonna blanch them really quick. Let's get, okay, so on the stove, I've got my water bath canner that is already full of water, and I'm gonna go ahead and start to heat it up because this can take quite some time to actually come to a simmer and a boil. And then over here, I've got my stock pot also coming to a boil, like a soft boil, because that's where we're gonna put our tomatoes in there so that they blanch. And then we're going to only blanch them for maybe like 2-3 minutes to loosen the skin so it slips right off once we get it into the water bath, which I have another pot in the sink that has cold water in it, so it'll help cool them off quickly in that water bath. That's the setup right here, along with all these tomatoes. While this water is heating up, I'm gonna take a good amount of tomatoes that will fit in here at one time and start coring them and slicing the sides of them so that the skin just kind of peels off. I'll probably do 2 or 3 depending on how big the tomato is. Quick wardrobe change. put my apron on, put my hair up. Nobody likes hair in their pasta sauce. So I am going to start grabbing some tomatoes. I'm just gonna also inspect them as I grab them because some of them are overripe and they're gonna go in the compost pile. So we're gonna look these over. Look at this. This is a beautiful Cherokee tomato. Now it did split down the side because we got so much water at one time, but it's not damaged in the fact that I can't use this in my pasta sauce. All right, so I've got this pretty nifty little tool. It's a corer. It's got like little teeth on the edges. I don't know if you can see that or not, but you can easily core things with it. So I'm just gonna take this and go down the middle with it. Give it a couple twists. And that will pop right out. I also have a little bucket right here next to me. That way I can drop all the stuff that I'm gonna be composting. And I'm just gonna take my knife, my little paring knife, and I'm gonna make a few little cuts down the side of the tomatoes, just like that. I'm gonna set them aside, because that one's done. I'm gonna do that with everything I can fit in this stock pot on the stove. That's it. That's the first step for getting it into hot water. Okay, I've got a good amount right here that I'm gonna go ahead and add to my pot. That's already boiling. I'm gonna set a timer for 3 minutes. Once that goes off, I'm gonna take them out, put them in here. In the meantime, I'm gonna keep on doing my assembly line. Let's get these in there. Okay, my timer just went off, so I'm gonna start to take out the tomatoes and put them in my ice bath. And I know that it's actually working because I can tell here that this skin from the pot is already coming loose. So, perfect amount of time. Going to just transfer these now into cold water and do the process all over again until I run out of tomatoes. Then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so the last of the tomatoes have come out of the boil to loosen the skin. I have them in a strainer in my sink, and right now I'm gonna cut up an onion. We're gonna do 1 cup chopped onion. We're gonna do 3 cloves garlic minced. You can add or subtract to that if you really like garlic. I really like garlic, so I may increase that a little bit. You're also going to need about half a tablespoon of dried oregano, a little bit of olive oil to saute the onions and the garlic. You're not going to want a whole lot of olive oil, or maybe you do. Just know that it could settle on the top of your pasta sauce and create like just an oily layer, which is fine because I've done that in the past, and you just mix it all together and just have a little bit more oil in your sauce. But if you don't want to do that, you can just enough to saute your vegetables. About a 1/4 cup fresh basil, or 1 tablespoon dried basil, half a tablespoon of canning salt or just a fine sea salt, and about half a teaspoon to a teaspoon black pepper, depending on your preference and your taste. Then we're gonna need about half a tablespoon of sugar as well. And it's not gonna make your sauce sweet at all. It's actually gonna cut the acidity, because if you don't add that sugar into your sauce, it's gonna be very, very acidic. And believe me, you're gonna wanna add a little bit of sugar into your sauce. And then last but not least, you are gonna need to add in a little bit of extra acidity to each jar. So if you've got a fresh lemon or even bottled lemon juice that you can add to your jar, we're gonna add, for me, citric acid. This is what I have, and as you can see, there's actually tomatoes on the label of the citric acid. So it says here, use for canning tomatoes replaces lemon juice. So we're gonna be using this, and we're gonna actually be putting a little bit in the jar as we fill it up, and it's gonna help preserve everything inside the jar for shelf-stable life. All right, so for now, I'm gonna go ahead and I have kept the pot that has all of the juices that reduced down from when the tomatoes cooked and they blanched, and then I added it to the water where the tomatoes broke down, where the skins came apart. I'm leaving that aside because once we pack our jars, if we need to fill it up at all with any extra remaining liquids that we need to make sure that we get what we want, the consistency that we want, I'm going to use this tomato juice to do it. So keeping that aside. My other pot has my lids and my rings. They are being, well, they've been boiled and now they're in the back burner, sitting and waiting and keeping warm for whenever we get ready to do our canning process. Now I'm going to get another pot out and start sauteing my onions and garlic in a little bit of olive oil. Okay, now while my oil is heating up on the stove, I'm just going to chop up some fresh basil. And you can use dried, but I've got a lot of fresh, so we're going to use that. I don't have fresh oregano, unfortunately, but I do have dried oregano. Alright, it's just a rough chop. Set that aside. Alright, I'm going to add my onions into my pot. Turn that down a little bit. Okay, now we're just going to cook these until translucent and just a minute or two, and then I'm going to add in the garlic. Okay, my onions are pretty translucent, so I'm going to go ahead and add in about 3 to 4 cloves worth of minced garlic. Just kind of eyeball it. This jar is almost gone, so I'm just going to go ahead and add it all. We're going to cook this down for a little bit, a couple minutes. And then, the fun part, we're going to add in our tomatoes. Okay, I've turned the heat off of my onions and garlic, and I'm just going to let them kind of come together. Just keep an eye on it, because if your pot is still very hot, you will burn them, but mine's coming down to just a low simmer. So I'm going to go back over to my tomatoes. I'm going to take off the skins fairly quickly, and then we can add them to this pot. Okay, so I have my bowl of my scraps. So I'm just going to take my tomatoes from my strainer over here and just gently slip off the skins from where I've made the cut. Some of them are going to be a little bit more difficult to peel than others, but hopefully they've blanched well enough to where they just kind of slide right off the tomato. Like this one, for example, is going to give me some fits. Some of the more unripe tomatoes that are a little bit more green, the skin tends to stick to the tomato a little bit more. So just kind of work with it and peel it off. And as you peel them, you can go ahead and just plop these right back into your pot that has your onions and everything in here. I kind of open them up a little bit, especially the ones that have more seeds, and I run my thumb through it, and I just take out the seedy parts, the seedy bits, because the core, when you core them, it doesn't always get the ones that have a lot of seeds. Your main thing is you want to be left with a bunch of meat, right? The meat of the meat of the potato, the meat of the tomato, and that is what's going to help be your chunky sauce. You don't really want a whole lot of seeds in your sauce unless you're just into that. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it in my pot. Get this one. These are why Romas are so good to use, because the skin falls right off, and look at that. That's just one big hunk of meat. Right into the pot. 3 hours later, I've peeled my tomatoes. I'm gonna turn my heat on medium and just give this like a stir so it combines the garlic with the onions that were in the pot. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add the rest of my ingredients, which is the cracked pepper, the basil, and the oregano. So let's go ahead and get that in here now. There's my basil. Just gonna do a little bit. That should be good. Gonna do half a tablespoon of sugar, half a tablespoon canning salt. I'm just gonna add in some black pepper. Half a teaspoon or so. All right, I'm just gonna give this all a good mix. I'm gonna let this cook and reduce down. This is gonna soften the tomatoes a bit, have the flavors incorporate. I'm gonna set a timer for about an hour, and then I'm gonna come back with my immersion blender and I'm gonna blend it all smoothly. If you want a more chunkier salsa, or if you want a chunkier sauce, then you can just pre-chop your tomatoes before you add it to your pot and have the consistency that you want without blending it up. But I want a smoother sauce, so I'm gonna blend them with my immersion blender once I get this kind of reduced down a bit. Now, as you can tell, that was a bunch of tomatoes and I don't really have that many left. And it definitely shrinks as you take out the core and the skin, and it kind of just reduces down already. So you do need quite a bit of tomatoes in order to make tomato sauce with fresh tomatoes. You can make your own sauce if you just get canned whole tomatoes at the grocery store. You can make your own sauce if you want to do it that way, and they're already peeled and ready for you to put them in your pot and add whatever ingredients you want to incorporate with your own sauces. So that's kind of one way to do it. Or if you've got your own tomatoes in your own garden, you can do it this way as well. But I will show you what we're looking like in an hour. Okay, so it's been about an hour and it's really reduced down. So I am going to blend it with my immersion blender. I'm going to blend it all together, and I may add some of the juices from earlier that I put aside in the stock pot to, if it's like too thick, if I need to like water it down a little bit, make it thinner. But I'm just going to kind of play it by ear, and then I'm going to cook this for another hour. I'm going to let this all kind of come together and reduce down for about 2 hours total, and then we can move on to the canning process. And as you can tell, it's really reduced down a lot.
Wee.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and add some of that into here. A little bit. And at this stage, you can leave it kind of chunky if you want, or it almost looks like salsa at this point. I'm just going to blend it up just a little bit more because it will reduce down more. So you've got a really good, nice consistency right here. And I added probably, I don't know, 1.5 cups of my tomato water juice that I had them blanching in. So I'm just going to let this reduce down again, and I may need to add a little bit more water again in an hour. This is just going to sit on a simmer, on a low simmer. We don't want this to burn. Just going to simmer this on low heat and let it reduce down and just come together with all the flavors before we put it in the canner. We've reached, I don't know, the 2+ hour mark that this has been on the stove, simmering and reducing, and I've blended it a little bit more to make it the consistency that I like. So now would be the time to test this for however you want it to taste in the jar. So go ahead and taste it, and if you need to add anything, like it's too acidic, you can add a little bit more sugar, add it slowly, and then right where you feel like this is a good, nice tomato sauce or tomato gravy, then you can can it. Do you want to try it? Try it. Let me know what you think, if it's missing something. That's going to be hot, by the way.
I assumed.
Oh, that was, you just went all in. What's it lacking?
Maybe a little salt?
You need salt? Yeah.
Not a whole bunch.
I just did 1/2 teaspoon.
Yeah.
A little bit more salt?
Tomato flavor is good. Acidity is good.
Yeah? Just
Yeah,
need salt. What
just
about,
a little more
do you get like the basil and the oregano and the herbs in it? Just needs a little salt. Okay,
Yep.
cool. So, I'll add some salt. We can retaste it, and then we'll get ready to can it. I did add the pickling salt at first, but I'm gonna add in this coarse pink Himalayan salt this time around. I just did a few little cranks. Perfect.
Very good.
Cool.
I like it a lot.
Awesome. What do you think about the texture? Is it thin enough, thick enough?
I think it's perfect.
Me too. All right. So this is not gonna make like a ton of jars. I might be able to do I could probably do 3 pints. I could probably do 3, maybe 4 pints worth with this. But hey, that's 3 or 4 pints I don't have to buy at the store, right? Okay, I'm gonna try to do this as best I can. I've got some jars out here that I'm gonna use. Now I'm gonna take my citric acid and I'm gonna put a quarter teaspoon in each jar first, and then put the tomato sauce on top. This will fully incorporate once it's all together in the jar. But we're just gonna take our little quarter teaspoon, plop it in the bottom of the jar. I don't know exactly how many jars I'm gonna fill up, so I'm just gonna do 4 of these first. And we can add more if we have more. And I'm gonna take my funnel that makes this a little bit easier with splashing, my ladle, here. And my jars are warm because they've been in the oven staying warm. We're gonna dip it in sauce. We're gonna fill up the jars. It's important that your jars are still hot or warm so that when you put them in the water bath, they don't explode, because when you've got cool jars or cold jars with hot stuff, it's a disaster. Okay, so I left, I don't know, about ½ an inch of headspace. That's a good amount. Okay, this next step, pretty important. You're gonna wanna wipe any spillage off of every rim and make sure that it's all clean so that your top can get a good seal. I'm just gonna take a dry paper towel and just wipe this off. Okay, now I just poured off some of the water so they're easier to reach, but I've got my clean and boiled rings and tops for my jars, so I'm just gonna get some of these, and then we're just gonna take it and put it right down on top. Now we'll put the rings on. When you put the rings on, you just want to do them what they call finger tight. So you want to just kind of as tight as your hand can turn it without over tightening it. Like once you feel the slightest bit of resistance, that's good. Like that's good enough. Okay, I've got my pot going. I'm just gonna slowly put these in. Anytime you water bath or a can, you don't want glass to be touching it because they can rattle around and they can clink up against one another and break, and you don't want to shatter glass in here. Okay, so obviously the water, it has evaporated since I started this. I need to add more hot water to this pot to where it comes about 2 inches above the rim. Like we want this completely covered with water and submerged. So I'm gonna do that now. Okay, I've got it fully covered. We're gonna wait till this comes back to a full boil, and then we're gonna set our timer for about 35 minutes and let this come to, like, put the lid on it. We're gonna let this cook down for about 35 minutes, and then we're gonna take them out and let them sit for 24 hours to fully seal. If you do full quart jars, which are the larger jars, you're probably gonna wanna up your time to about 40 to 45 minutes. Okay, They are out of the canner. They're gonna sit here undisturbed for a day, and they're probably gonna start, their seals are probably gonna start clicking here in a second where I know that they're sealing. It happens pretty quickly once you let them cool off. But they are going to just sit here, and yeah, we'll be able to put these on the shelf and use them for our next pasta dishes pretty soon. Say bye, YouTube. Lola and Laura and I say catch you on the next one. Bye, guys.
Bye.
On the Denman Homestead, where the sun sets golden in the west, we live in harmony with nature, doing what we love best. From the garden to the kitchen, and the bees inside their hive. On the Denman Homestead, come along and plant, nourish, thrive.